morning, everyone. This is your book lady from Maya's Amazing Bookland. Today, I'm gonna read a story for you, The Wise Princess, that is part of Usborne Forgotten Fairy Tales. Well, a few words about forgotten fairy tales. People have been telling each other fairy tales for thousands of years. Then, a few hundred years ago, collectors began writing the stories down. The ones that became famous were the ones that reflected the ideas of the time. Those stories had patient, polite princesses such as Snow White and Sleeping Beauty. The tales with the bold girls fighting their own battles were ignored. This series brings to life the stories of those forgotten, brave, and brilliant stories. Chapter 1: The King's Test. There was once an old king who lived with his daughters in a crumbling castle. He loved his daughters very much, but how do I know if they love me? He wondered. In the end, he decided to set them a test. Tell me how much you love me, he said. I love you as much as all the world, said the eldest princess. I love you as much as life itself, said the middle princess. The king nodded and smiled, delighted with their words. Greta, the youngest princess, thought for a long time. I love you as much as salt, she said simply. The king frowned. Salt is for cooks, not kings, he snapped. Speak again. Greta shook her head. That made the king furious. You are not worthy to be a princess, he yelled. Get out and don't come back. Chapter 2: A Cloak of Rushes. Greta ran out of the castle. She ran until her lungs ached and her heart pounded. At last, she sank down to rest on the shore of a lake. A cold wind rustled the rushes. She shivered. I wish I had a cloak. Then she had an idea. She picked an armful of rushes and began to weave. Her fingers worked busily until she had a stiff rush cloak. She glanced at her reflection. Now she looked like a poor country girl or her servant. I should look for some work, she thought. A little way off stood a grand house where an old lord lived. I'll try there, she decided. Chapter 3: The Lord's Kitchen. Tap, tap, tap. Greta knocked lightly on the back door. A grumpy-looking housekeeper appeared. Please, have you any work? Asked Greta. We do need someone to wash the dishes. The housekeeper pointed to a mountain of greasy pots. All right, said Greta. Stepping aside, she rolled up her sleeves. Then she rubbed and scrubbed until the pots sparkled and her arms ached. Meanwhile, the housekeeper get on with the cooking. Unfortunately, she hated cooking and it showed. The first dish the Lord ate that night was too spicy. The next was too greasy. Then it got worse. What's this? After dinner, the Lord went to bed, looking rather green. Chapter 4: A Special Soup. Do not disturb. The next morning, the Lord did not come downstairs for breakfast. He's sick, said a servant. He doesn't want any food. The Lord didn't come down for lunch either. The housekeeper sent up a meal, but it came back untouched. I don't know what to do, she sighed. He just won't eat. May I try cooking something? Asked Greta. The housekeeper nodded. Greta washed her hands and began to chop, sizzle, stir. Before long, she had made a mouth-watering soup. A servant took up a bowlful. Delicious. The Lord asked for another bowlful and another, and he began to get better. In fact, the Lord liked the soup so much, he asked Greta to become his cook. Chapter 5: A Royal Visit. To His Royal Highness the King, you are invited to dinner. The king himself is coming, the housekeeper told Greta. The king? Greta smiled. That gives me an idea. On the day of the banquet, Greta rose early. She baked pies and pastries and simmered soups and stews, testing and tasting every dish herself. Bring me all the salt, she told the housekeeper. There must be no mistakes today. Servants scurried back and forth, setting the table in the great hall. Then, with a fanfare, the king arrived. Greta watched from the shadows. The first dish was a bowl of steaming soup. The Lord tried a spoonful and frowned. It has no taste, he thought. The king tried his own bowl. Pass the salt, he said, but there was no salt to be found. Next came a rich stew. The Lord took a small bite and his heart sank. The king put down his spoon. This needs salt too. It was the same with the next dish and the next. I'm sorry, stammered the Lord. Our food is usually delicious. The king shook his head sadly. Don't be sorry. It has helped me to see something important. I just wish my daughter Greta was here. Greta stepped forward. I'm here. The Lord gasped. The king held out his hand and Greta ran to him. I missed you so much. Now I see how wise you were, said the king. I cannot live without salt. Nothing has any taste without it. Will you forgive me? Greta nodded, blinking back tears of happiness. Greta brought out the salt and she had hidden and sprinkled it over the food. Then they sat down to eat together. Finally salted and served with love, it was the best meal they had ever tasted. About this story. This story was of a wise young princess banished by her father, dates back hundreds of years. In the early 1600s, the famous writer William Shakespeare even based part of his play King Lear on it. If you like it, the story, it's hard to say exactly when or where the story first began, as many similar tales are told across Europe. The version in this book is based on an old English tale known as Capper Rushes. Well, this was the story for today. If you liked the story, please like and share and subscribe to our channel. See you next time.